Hi, and welcome to the first ever edition of the Golden Aces Nation podcast, along with a Hall of Fame voice of the Mount Carmel Golden Aces. I'm Kyle Peach. And Scott, you and we've been talking about doing something like this for a while. And finally, 2024 is the year it comes to fruition.
Well, and more people listening to podcasts, there are so many varied subjects out there. Hey, why not when you're going town to town or between meetings or something during the day, you can flip on the podcast and hear all about Aces Sports. So we're excited about that. Looking forward to it, and we've got a lot of things to get to probably in the course of this next year. Half the topics we don't even know.
Yeah,
So
and half. That's being generous. I think that we don't even know where we're headed with this thing. So have some grace with us on this first one. We'll see where we go. But we're going to talk, obviously, Golden Aces football, getting you set for the 2024 campaign, which tips off on Friday night on the road across the river at Gibson Southern. We'll take a look at all of the other sports as the fall sports season in full swing, kind of hampered this week a little bit by the heat and humidity.
yeah.
We'll tell you how the teams are stacking up and the teams yet to take off. My favorite part, where this all came from, the idea for the podcast, at least in my head, was to get the stories the Hall of Famer has in his head out for everybody to hear. So, for those of you
Uh,
with Scott Allen stories and you know who you are, be very afraid because these stories are going to come out at some point, and I am excited to dig into that brain of Golden Aces knowledge and everything else that may come out in there when we get to that part.
Well, I'm actually kind of looking forward to that too. Who knows what's going to come out? I've got a nice one for you for tonight when old Grandpa tells stories, but that'll be later on. And it's a football story to start with. But you know what? I was just thinking, looking ahead to the schedule and particularly the weather, especially for Friday night. This could be one of these years again where we have lightning delays and long nights of football and maybe 2 days of football and who knows. But already the weather forecast for Friday looks like we might be headed that way. Who knows?
And for me, I don't know about you, but the night we spent together over at Breeze Mater
Yeah.
Day telling stories, we never took a break hardly at all that night on the radio, despite a 2 hour or more lightning delay. We were going to
Yeah.
get that game in and we just stuck with it. And that's kind of where maybe the idea from this podcast kind of first came to fruition. But you're right, the weather could be a factor Friday night.
Yeah, that I remember that game in modern day. Boy, we took the air of the pregame show at 6 o'clock, and as I believe, we got done just before midnight, right, with
Yeah, I
everything.
think the
So
game started a little after 9 p.m. So
yeah,
uh,
and with all the rain delay, lightning delays, and everything else, we had a chance to tell a boatload of stories.
it was
So
it was a fun night.
yeah, it was a great night. I enjoyed it, and sure, some of these stories will be important to tell, and we'll have a little fun with them in the meantime, and at least they'll be on the record somewhere. So there you
You know,
go.
the other interesting thing you talk about the weather for coming up Friday night on the start of the Aces football season, it was a year ago when Mount Carmel took on Gibson Southern at the Snake Pit, where the start time kept getting pushed back because
Hmm.
the heat and humidity and the heat index value, the wet bulb, I guess technically, was too high to begin play. So they had to keep pushing the start time back. Will that happen Friday night? We'll see. Will it be lightning that gets in the way? We'll see. Or maybe we'll be smooth sailing, but we're going to find out on
And what a
Friday
start
night.
to the year last year was too. I think we had a lot of questions going into last year. And looking back on it, why did we have any questions going in? But well, I think we did, and yet the Aces came out and I think shocked Gibson Southern early on. The Titans had to take all night long to fight from behind to get out of there with a win. But and looking back, silly us for thinking we were the upstart team. I mean, it turns out we go all the way to week 14 in the state championship game. This team was a lot better even in week one than we gave them credit for, and then they got better and better and better as the year went on.
You know, this team last year reminded me a lot of the 2001 team that went to the state championship. They had two double overtime games that
Okay.
season, and they lost to Bethalto Civic Memorial in the regular season. We could have been a 6-3 playoff team that year and ended up going all the way to the state. We were within an eyelash of being an 0-2 team last year that went all the way to the state finals.
Yep. So you just never know, and no need to pull any panic switches or buttons or anything else. Just let this thing play out and let's see what happens. It's a long season, 9 weeks, and hopefully five more after that too. So, and we're going to get it all started one way or the other. Season 105 is set to begin.
105 begins on Friday night, and it will be at least on opening night, a night of many questions once again. Gone is Blaine Sisson. Gone is Asher Kite. Gone is a lot of the line from last year. This is a if there ever was a time, I guess, and I use this word cautiously to throw out the phrase rebuilding, this might be the year. So many new faces in new positions and a new look offense.
Boy, the returnees numbers are about as small as we've ever had them. One returning starter on offense, that's Reed Stinson on the front line from last year, and two on defense, Elliot Acree and Andrew Militoni. One and two. Really? When's the last time that happened? So and only five seniors on this club. So boy, a lot of, I guess, rebuilding, but nobody's going to wait for you. So, we can call it rebuilding if you want, maybe retooling, but the kids will have to step up pretty quickly and learn as quickly as they can, which is a hallmark of Mount Carmel football, I think, over the years. How many teams have we seen? And I'm thinking back to the John Gates era assistant coach. He used to, I remember week 3 and week 4, here we played Red Hill, played Flora, and we're going into the Salem game in week 5, and he's shaking his head like, I don't know where we're going to get any wins. And he was the maestro in terms of putting line play together. They always came through. We always had a good stable of running backs and everything else and skilled people. So one way or another, Mount Carmel will find itself. It just doesn't look great on paper, but they will. This team will probably build as quickly as they can, and they'll have to, quite frankly. But I think in the end, we're going to be okay with this bunch.
Last year, Scott, I think we had, what was it, 13 seniors on the roster. It was a big number. This year, three. And you look at players with experience. So back in the starting lineup that we believe will be the starting lineup on Friday night. On the rushing side of the ball, the kid with the most return rushes and yardage from a year ago is Elliot Acree. 74 carries for 468 yards. He's just a junior, and he'll be one of the key cogs for the Aces offense. Tobias Fulop, 25 carries, 142 yards, one of the seniors on this team. Also back, Shane Metter, 2 carries, 2 yards. Jack Webb had 3 for 4. Xander Bader, 1 for no yards. So 105 of our 495 carries last year were from players who are starting here on Friday night. Receiving, the best receiver we've got back by terms of yardage, Jack Webb, 297 receiving yards, 17 catches. Shane Metter, 13 for 153. Xander Bader and Tobias Fulop each had catches as well. So it's not like the cupboard's completely bare, but it is going to be a gut check experience for those veterans returning, and certainly a big opponent coming in week 1 in the Titans of Gibson Southern.
And those two kids you talked about in the backfield, Fulop and Acree, the fact is they got enough reps last year to begin to see the field, and we could see their talents flourishing even in the second half of last year during the regular season. It was fun to watch. They kept getting better and better, as of course they worked around a great bunch in practice too. To try to earn any playing time, they had to really develop quickly, and so I think we're going to see big things out of those two as well. And what about Jack Webb? We saw him make some fine catches here during the year last year. Big kid, tall kid. He can go up and get it. So I think he's just going to be that much better this year too, with all that experience behind him as he gets as ready to go. Now I don't know how many times we're going to throw, but we will throw some, and he'll be able to use his. They'll use his body in the tight end role to block too as well and get out to the edge. So Webb will be an integral part of this club. And he, like Fulop, really began to do some great things toward the end of last year.
Well, and Tobias Fulop, the only senior, as you mentioned, that will be returning to the starting lineup as a senior. We're starting a freshman at a tackle spot in Keegan Linson. Also up front, the juniors, Sam Strockbine and Braden Mason. There is the senior lineman who you called out, Reed Stinson, starting. So technically 2 seniors starting on offense. The sophomore center is Aiden Reynolds. Jack Webb there at the tight end is a junior. Another kid I'm excited to watch is the junior Rhett Andrews, who wears number 10. He'll be the starting wide receiver for us out there, and he's certainly an athlete in that junior class that obviously is going to get some experience. Xander Bader, relatively untested out of the backfield at a running back position. That'll be fun to watch. And Shane Metter, maybe the biggest story of the offense this year, making the transition to the quarterback position.
Yeah. And looking forward to that. Good all around athlete too. So he'll be able to take this and run with it too. You were going through the linemen earlier, and how about freshman Keegan Linson starting on offense? Boy, what a challenge for him. And this is a kid that's up to it for sure. But I look at Reed Stinson. I mean, he's our headliner up front. I mean, he is the guy that everybody else is going to have to focus on, other teams in the Little Illini Conference and anybody that for that matter. But he's our definitely our headliner on that offensive front, and for that matter on defense too.
Yeah, Shane Metter gets the start at quarterback as a sophomore. Not very often in the history of Mount Carmel sports do you see a quarterback start as a sophomore, but he gets that opportunity here this year. There may be some platooning there at the quarterback spot as well for the Aces this season. Don't want to give away all our secrets heading in, but that is something that we'll be watching for there. Anything else on offense to call attention to from your standpoint? I mean, obviously, you look at the players going both ways. Reed Stinson will go both ways. Jack Webb set to go both ways. Sam Strockbine, Braden Mason. And then you've got, let's see, Elliot Acree is lined up to go both ways. Shane Metter, Xander Bader, Tobias Fulop. We got a lot of two-way players
Yeah.
on this team. And being week one in heat and humidity, that is obviously going to be a big week one factor.
Well, you went through the names. I think I went through the list earlier. So that's eight, I believe, that are two-way performers. Eight and playing in the heat at Gibson Southern, where they're probably a two-platoon team right out of the gate. Nick Hart likes to do that. Who wouldn't with the numbers they've got over there? But that'll be another challenge for our kids. But then again, we thought it was going to be all Gibson Southern last year in week one, and look what our kids did out of the gate. So you just can't push anything by these Mount Carmel kids. And you know what? We're going to get water breaks, I think, and everything else. There's no doubt this game's going to take a while to get through because it sounds like the heat and humidity will be there unless the storms come through and knock it down enough. And if we don't get lightning delays, it might not be warm enough to have to stop the game. So we might get a game in regulation and regular time on Friday. But yeah, looking forward to seeing how these kids handle it. The big challenge of one being young, and probably with all these freshmen and sophomores starting, and even some juniors. Obviously that means that they're not as strong as they're going to be as seniors, so they haven't bulked up to their max yet. There's going to be some inexperience for a freshman up front, for example, and Keegan Linson. He's got to learn the way as well too. So all things considered. It's still going to be a challenge. We know that for a fact, but I always like Mount Carmel kids and their abilities to develop and move on and replace the kids who graduated before them and step right into those roles and go from there. So I don't really expect anything different out of this kid, but they're going to have to keep their heads up while they get through these first 2 weeks. Between Gibson Southern and Effingham. I think the Hearts are going to be stronger again this year. They've been trending up as of late, as you know, and we caught a little bit of that last year and barely got out of there with a win. They're going to be tough to deal with too. And then the LIC, we know KZ Westfield is chomping at the bit in week 7. That'll probably be the toughest opponent Mount Carmel may see in the conference. At least we think so early on. So mark week 7 down. That could be a showdown. But again, where will our kids be by week 7? Now, and the other problem, of course, that I know we haven't talked about yet is injuries.
Right.
We obviously, with this young of a team, don't have a lot of depth, and it'll only get younger, more freshmen and et cetera after this. So we've got to, make sure we stay healthy or do our best to stay healthy or just keep our fingers crossed, and maybe we'll do it that way. But, a lot of things challenge. This is one of the most challenging seasons I can ever remember for Mount Carmel football. And, but that always excites Aces fans to see how this plays out with these new kids.
Yeah, certainly so. And speaking of new kids, probably one of the biggest off-season acquisitions, which we don't use that term loosely, but was bringing home a former Golden Ace in Kevin Kling to be an administrator within District 348. And along with him comes his son, who will start for us defensively. Really excited to see number 41, the sophomore Jackson Kling, start at an outside linebacker position. And I think you'll see him on offense some too.
Yep. In fact, we've got two sophomore linebackers. So then I'll tell you what the coaches think about Militoni and also Kling on the defensive side of the football. You put sophomores in at linebacker spots. Uh, they're expected to, I mean, that's a mental position of sorts, physical as well. But you've got to know what you're doing at all times, and sophomores don't usually end up as linebackers. So uh, that way, it sounds like Jackson Kling's going to step right in. Of course, he's got a great dad, got great football genes, so he'll put him to good use here in Mount Carmel.
Dad helping on the staff too. Jackson Kling, a 5'10", 220 sophomore starting at the outside linebacker position. MJ Militoni, another sophomore starting there, and Shane Metter starting at corner is the sophomore. So three defensive starters, sophomores, two seniors, and the safety Tobias Fulham and the tackle Reed Stinson. Then the juniors,
Mhm.
Braden Mason, Jack Webb, Sam Strockbine, Elliot Acree, and Xander Bader round out the starters for the Aces defensively. Maybe the biggest change in the last maybe decade for Mount Carmel football, there is not a Loudermilk set to kick for this Aces team in 2024.
Yeah, I don't even know who we got lined up for special teams. Did they
I
put
don't
any
I
up
don't
on
have that
display?
yet. Yeah, I don't
Yeah, they
have that
didn't.
yet. I did hear the rumor that we might be going for two this year, and not looking to kick the extra points. We'll see if that pans out. But
Yeah,
nonetheless, you can't when you graduate your school record holders back to back times of graduation,
yeah.
both brothers. The kicking game was a very nice luxury for the Aces for the last 8 years, but maybe not so much now. We'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, let me look over my shoulder very quickly. There's no Loudermilk here. There's no Loudermilk standing in line. What's the deal? Oh,
Yeah, forgive us if somebody lines up to kick if they're not just referred to as Loudermilk, because that just makes
hmm
sense. But you zero in on Gibson Southern. Nick Hart. He's been around. He's built Gibson Southern into a perennial contender
Yep.
there in the Pocket Athletic Conference, a state-ranked team in Class 3A in Indiana coming into the preseason. They had their hands full last Friday night in their season opener against 4A Danville out of Indiana. In fact, Danville had a 14-0 lead after two quarters, actually after 3 quarters of play, and very similar to the opener for the Aces
Mhm.
against the Titans yet last year. Gibson Southern came storming back to take a 21-14 win.
Yeah, when you show me that box score, it's the same exact kind of pattern too. And I guess and if you're a coach like Nick Hart is, he's probably going, "What is the deal with that?" But yeah, that's very. I mean, that's a feather in their cap that those kids are well, they remind you of Mount Carmel kids. They just don't quit, and they will come back no matter who they're playing, a 4A school or a 2A school or whatever. And it shows. It showed last year. They came back on Mount Carmel, and came back on Danville too. So. And there's that age-old thing that we've had to deal with this all the years in the Big Eight Conference. It's week one for Illinois, it's week two for Indiana, and of course, then they had they've had a week ahead of us all the way from the start of preseason to the scrimmage now, and so there's always that to deal with, and we've never used it as an excuse, and I guess we always could have, uh, I think that affected Mount Carmel even to week two in the Big Eight years. We played Mount Vernon in week two, and I don't think that wears off until about week three or so to get a third of the way through the season. I think something nice for Illinois, Kyle, and you were there last week, is the fact that Illinois schools can scrimmage now.
Yeah.
Man, that's a great idea, especially this year for Mount Carmel. With all these young kids, it would have been hard to put together a scrimmage with any kind of credibility at all with juniors going against freshmen because that's all we've got left and things like that if we tried to assemble a matchup. So it was almost a godsend that we got to play somebody else on scrimmage night this year too. So I'm sure Michael was pleased at least having somebody across the line from him that was at least a junior or senior.
Yeah, the Edwards County Lions, coached by Russ
Mhm.
Gerlach, made the trip to Riverview Stadium last Friday night. A scrimmage in which no score was kept. I think both teams saw things they needed to work on, and things that they really liked about their clubs. On Friday night, we had a chance to talk to Michael Brewer after the scrimmage was over. Here is what he thought of his team following that scrimmage. First chance to see your guys against someone else, and for the first time, it's not in week one. So
Yeah.
thoughts about tonight and what you saw?
I like it. I like the format. I like, you know what I mean? The alternative is us trying to have a Gator Bowl where we're playing ourselves again. You know what I mean? We've been doing that for a long time. So, no, I love the format. I love having a different team to go against. It's great. I'm glad we get to do it. I'm glad the IHSA changed it, and looking forward to that in the future too. You know what I mean? So I think it's good for our football team.
We like to say around here, Mount Carmel football doesn't rebuild, we reload. So as we're reloading, your assessment of our play tonight?
Well, not very good. We have a lot of young kids. We have a lot of sophomores. We have a lot of juniors that are out there playing that don't have a lot of varsity experience. And we're doing new stuff on offense. So that's a lot of change, and that's a lot new. So I don't have any our effort has been pretty good, in everything we've done in practice and out here. And so we're finagling things. We're finagling splits. We're finagling pitch relationship on some stuff. You know what I mean? There's just lots of little things that we have to clean up. We have to do a better job of knowing our assignments. And like I said, stuff is new. So some of that's to be expected. And so we'll be fine. Again, I told them that it's not right. We get too zoomed in on the moment, and we need to, pan out a little bit and understand that this group is going to have to get better every single week. And so that's the challenge for them: improve, get better, and let's see where we're at week 9 and week 10, and we'll go from there.
Tell us, especially some of the skill position players that fans are going to hear their names called a lot this year. Some guys that are really going to help us move.
Yeah, so 2 guys right now that are rotating at quarterback are Shane Metter and Andrew Militoni. And so eventually we'll make a determination there, but they can both do it. And they've both done a pretty good job. They're pretty close. So we'll make a determination there at some point. The one that's not playing quarterback will probably be one of those wing backs. So they're going to be in those spots too. MJ Militoni, Xander Bader, Tobias Fulop, those are the guys that are going to take the majority of the reps at those wing spots, and then our fullbacks will carry a lot of the load, and that's Elliot Akery and Jackson Klein.
And then just a comment about go time now. Week 1, Gibson Southern next week. Thoughts heading into that one?
Yeah, at this point, as you look at your season, Gibson Southern's a good team with a lot of guys coming back. We have to get better, right? Whatever happens, we have to improve, and we have to make sure we're making progress toward a week 9 goal. So we'll start our game planning, prep this week and start working on that. We have a lot of us to fix still too. So we'll work on that, and we're just going to be focused on getting better as much as we can from one week to another.
And there you have it, Mount Carmel football coach Michael Brewer starting his 8th year at the helm this year.
How's that possible? 8 years for Michael Brewer?
Years have gotten away.
Where did the time go? Goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last thing before we kind of move past opening night of the football season, just some key personnel to watch for Gibson Southern, some things that stood out from that Danville game for me. One, the Titans carried the ball 35 times, but only amassed 51 yards in those 35 carries, about 1.5 yards per touch on the ground. The quarterback, Zach Foster, had 17 of those 35 carries. The other, leading rusher, Chase Thaxton, number 3, had 7 touches for 16 yards. Foster, 13 of 25 through the air, 172 yards. He was sacked 3 times, did have a touchdown through the air, and the big story, I think, for them, 2 interceptions, one of them thrown in the red zone on the road at Danville there on opening night. One of their strengths will be Cam Novotny, their kicker. He did line up for a field goal attempt that was no good during that game, but he's got a good boot on him. Key receiver, the top one, Seth Parsons, 8 catches, 8 targets, 6 catches, 38 yards, and Maddox Potts, 3 catches and 7 targets for just shy of 100 yards, and he caught the touchdown pass. So there you go, some information for you to get ready for the Aces and Titans, scheduled for a 7 o'clock kick on Friday night. Of course, Scott and I will have the call on the radio side on WSJD, and the 1-hour pregame show will begin at 6, and then we'll have the News Channel 15 live video stream. And this year, it's going to be on YouTube as many times as we can get there, including Friday night. So do not go to the NFHS network on Friday night. It will be on YouTube through the News Channel 15 YouTube. You can find that on the my15news.com website.
So that is a change, huh?
A big change. We'll still be on the network when we have to be, but nonetheless, we will try to be on YouTube as many times as we can. Scott, let's transition a little bit. You called it Grandpa's Story Hour. Maybe that's going to be the name of the segment. I don't know, but you had the chance to. I said we wanted to dig into that brain of yours, and I think you were focusing on opening nights past, right?
Yeah, so I apologize to old age. Generally was off the top of my head, but I still wrote it down, so I made sure I didn't miss any details as we go. Sorry, I'm getting old. But yeah, let's go back to 1956. It's September the 14th. Okay, how many years ago is that? That's 68 years ago, right? Okay.
You're the math
So
whiz, by the way.
well, that's years of doing sports does that for you. Yeah. So September 14th, 1956, that was opening night back then. Remember, we used to wait until well after Labor Day to start the season. It was Mount Carmel versus Edwards County, the teams they played together 50 times on opening night. And this was just another one. The game was at Mount Carmel at the Snake Pit. And so Edwards County, the problem was Edwards County did not have their usual white jerseys for the road team. They had new jerseys that year. They had not come in. So all they had left was their dark scarlet home uniforms. You already know where this is going, probably. So now here we have Mount Carmel in their dark maroon back then, and Edwards County in their dark scarlet. And of course it's a muddy night. There's no way this is working in the officials' eyes. So what are they going to do? Well, Paul Gibson was the coach of the Aces. He got a hold of Evansville Central High School, and he managed to arrange usage of the Bears home uniform for one night. And so Mount Carmel played in the Evansville Central Bears home uniform. That was a little bit of lighter gold like the Central Bears have. And so Mount Carmel played in the Evansville Central Bears home jerseys, and they still worked well. Mount Carmel won at 13-6, and a little quarterback by the name of Bud Brown started in that game. He threw one touchdown pass and ran for another. And the Aces Bears, at least the Bears for the night, beat the Lions, I guess, 13-6. So there's my story for the week.
There
September
you
14th,
go.
1956. Mount
Love it.
Carmel won a game in somebody else's unis.
And you were not on the call in that game.
I was not on the call on that. I was barely a little baby boy in Peoria already causing trouble for mom and dad. So there you go.
What is it with Mount Carmel and partnering in our odd situations with Evansville Central? Because remember,
Well,
we had a
yep,
playoff game played there years ago.
probably. Well, and I think it is to this day the only Illinois playoff game not played in Illinois was the year Mount Carmel played Evansville Central. Excuse me, they played Muhammad Seymour, right, at Evansville Central, and in their stadium, and because they had turf, and Mount Carmel's field was just going to get wrecked. And I thought it was really impressive. Muhammad Seymour, they're from Champaign, Illinois, and they decided to come a little further and go on into town and into Evansville and play the game. So yeah, and that was a few years ago now too. But that I'm sure that still holds as trivia there for Illinois.
Yeah, there you go. So see, that's what I love. That's what I'm going to love about doing this podcast with you is the deep dives into that brain of yours of Golden Aces history.
Yeah.
One of the other things we wanted to obviously do with this podcast is not to center all our attention on football, which is easy to do in Mount Carmel, but we want to talk about some of the other sports too and things going on. So the girls' tennis team is scheduled to play Thursday at
Okay.
Olney. That, of course, could be impacted by the heat or the weather. Elise Bramlett, the coach of the girls' tennis team, they're scheduled to play again Thursday at Olney. You look at their schedule, they will be at home for the first time after Labor Day, September the 5th, at home against the Mules of Fairfield. Meanwhile, you look at volleyball, they're already off to the start of the season. Sarita Willis's ball club taking on maybe the best team in our part of the state from a year ago. No, it wasn't the Edwards County Lions. That's week 2. That's the game 2 for them. It was the Carmi Lady
Yeah.
Bulldogs. Volleyball lost that one in straight sets to open the season. They'll look to bounce back Thursday against Edwards County, unique in that because of the heat and the fact there is no air conditioning at the Hilltop, that game is being moved to Mount Carmel Grade School, the old junior high, just down Oak Street here. And so that's where that Mount Carmel and Edwards County volleyball game will be on Thursday night. We encourage you to get out and support the Lady Aces. But boy, what a tough start schedule-wise for them. Carmi last year, a state tournament team in Edwards County who's
A
always
perennial
seemed to be in the
power.
finals.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about Golden Aces cross country too. They open the season on Saturday. Matt McCarty's club is in Evansville and at the Harrison Invitational. And so here, Kyle went out and got some content with Michael Brewer that we just had that interview a couple minutes ago. So I'm going to do my best, Kyle, to get some content with Matt on Saturday at Evansville Harrison, and maybe we'll have that for you next week on the next edition. But the cross country Aces open their season on Saturday.
Yeah, my understanding, of course, Matt McCarty, the girls basketball coach at the Hilltop. This is his first season coaching cross country, and from what I've heard, the numbers are good
Good.
for the cross country team this year. So excited to see that. Meanwhile, we'll talk a little soccer. The boys soccer team, coached by the veteran Ed Burbrick, will be opening the season at Olney. 4:30 start coming up on September the 5th. That seems to always be a rivalry matchup between Mount Carmel and Olney. And then obviously that's a home and home series. So Mount Carmel will return the favor and host the Tigers on September the 26th. Good luck and best luck to the soccer aces opening the season. Also dealing with the loss of anyone named Loudermilk on their roster for the first time in about 8 years.
Yeah. So, and they hope to kind of rebound a little bit too this year, and the Aces look to get the numbers back and the win totals up a little bit too this year. But they're set to open the season. And you're right, Olney's always a tough one, isn't it?
No doubt. Seems to be again kind of that LIC rivalry there with the Tigers. And speaking of series, what a run these Lady Aces golfers have been on. There are players on that roster. This is hard to imagine that have not lost ever. They have not lost in high school golf, and that's remarkable.
And we're not just talking duels; we're talking invitationals. We count every single team we beat in an invitational as a win, and these girls still haven't lost.
That's just unbelievable.
Amazing.
Karen Kelsey's built this into a monster program.
Mm-hmm.
And
so here they are. They're ready to kick it off here. Well, they've already won the Mount Carmel Invite too.
Yep.
And
they beat Castle at home.
What coming up, Kyle? I see that these are your notes here. What do you got coming up?
Yeah, they were scheduled, I think, to be at home Wednesday, and I haven't seen scores, and I really believe that was canceled because of the heat. So they are scheduled to be at Harrisburg on Thursday night as this was released. But Castle, well, first of all, let's go back. That Mount Carmel Invite, 3 teams there. Mount Carmel won by nearly 100 strokes.
Yeah.
Over second place, 100 strokes. I don't play golf because I would embarrass myself, but I would be shocked if I would go out there and play just an average Joe and take 100 more strokes. But that's what Mount Carmel did to the second place team in their own invite, and then played maybe their toughest competition potentially of all season in Indiana Power Castle the next time out, and they won that one. So they're on a roll. They beat Gibson Southern. They went to Massac County in the Patriot Invite. They won that with a slew of other teams. We've had the medalist in every game, every match we've played. And this is looking like another team that is poised for a deep postseason run.
Yeah. I wouldn't feel so bad about those other teams, though. I've frequently been 100 strokes behind competition on the golf course too. Not that I'm bad, but I'm really bad.
Me too.
I actually get my phone out and text the other members of the golf party when I plan to arrive at the next tee. Right. Cool, will you please wait on me? That happens all the time.
I golf when it's dark and snowing. That's when I golf because nobody can see how bad I am. So, what a good start for Karen Kelsey and the Lady Aces. Meanwhile, Abby Carpenter is the head coach of the boys program again here, and they're off to a solid start. They did well at the home invitational, hosting it in Mount Carmel. They've played Robinson, Harrisburg. They were at the Patriot Invite, and they're next scheduled, I believe, to be with Lawrenceville and Edwards County tomorrow at home. I think that's at home. Is that at home? I've got my schedule here. I'll cheat. They are on Thursday at home with a 4:00 scheduled start on Thursday. So best of luck to Abby Carpenter and the boys team. The football town that Mount Carmel is becoming a golf town, maybe two. And the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. These golf teams just win state championships.
Yeah, can the girls make it 4 in a row?
Right now it looks like they'd be the odds-on favorite.
Oh yeah, I would think so. And let's talk junior aces football too. Mount Carmel is set to open the home season on September 7th. They're off this week, right? All the way.
Yep,
And
no games.
a bye week. They open on the 7th against Casey Westfield.
There you go.
And as always, it's fun watching the kids. It's always historic that our sixth graders this year are scoring more points than we sometimes do. And kids are learning it at sixth grade at this level. Then they really can begin to see them evolve as seventh and eighth graders into the powerhouses to be that we've known from Mount Carmel. But sometimes it's a rough start at sixth grade. So I kind of like the fact they're already scoring and learning how to move the ball down the field and get that done. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, certainly so. And if you want to see the future of Golden Aces football, make sure you head out and support them on Saturdays. The sixth grade plays first, the eighth grade follows. They've put a nice schedule together. Had a week off here this week. I think most of the teams in that league do have a bye in their schedule. Need another team to join the league, but nonetheless, get out and support the junior aces. And that, I think, is everything that is going on in the world of Golden Aces Nation.
Well, in the weeks to come, we're going to have all kinds of interesting little interviews and other little storylines that we develop, and not just with current coaches and everything else, but this is going to be a great opportunity to visit with some from the past too. And you'll catch some interviews. I can just tell you, I really want to delve into a couple of football stories from the past. And that may have something to do with the Hall of Fame induction teams, or maybe not. But just think of all the people that we're going to have on this in years past. So we hope you enjoy these interviews to come as we build this up. And yeah, I guess I'll tell a story here and there too. So,
Well, who knows where this is headed, but thanks for spending time with us here watching our first edition of the Golden Aces Nation podcast. That's Scott Allen. I'm Kyle Peach. We'll see you Friday night.
yep.
Literally and figuratively across the river at Gibson Southern, and see you next Thursday for edition number 2 of the show. Thanks for joining us tonight. See you next time.